Today we're going over the Herrington Arms HCDG Compensator and the DG No-Fin. If you guys want to jump around, feel free. We're going to go over both compensators, how to install, uninstall, and some frequently asked questions. What we have here is a compensator for the PSA Dagger. This is going to be a single port compensator, focusing solely on the actual muzzle flip and not necessarily of the recoil of the handgun. What that means for you guys is you are going to be able to get faster follow-up shots. It's going to have less vertical muzzle rise or muzzle flip, and it's not going to focus on the in-the-hand felt recoil. A Glock has a low bore axis, or a PSA Dagger has a low bore axis, so this gun already shoots pretty soft, and in our testing, this compensator was the best for this handgun. Something to keep in mind before you guys get started, PSA ships their threaded barrels with a thread protector and an O-ring. The O-ring stays on the barrel. You want to remove that O-ring before you install the compensator. What that can do is it can bind up in this counter bore and cause the comp not to sit as far back as it should. So you just got your new Herrington Arms HCDG or DG No-Fin compensator in, and now you want to install it. It's a very easy install process. First thing you're going to want to do is make sure your gun is clear and break down the gun. All right, now that you have your guide rod out, you can pull your barrel forward. This is a very important step. You're going to want to make sure your barrel threads are degreased with some sort of degreaser like Dawn dish soap, and then also clean. If you have a lot of carbon on your barrel threads, if you've been shooting a threaded barrel for a long time, these barrel threads can be covered in carbon and cause a lot of issues when you start adding Loctite to it. Either the Loctite won't cure or it'll be too tight of a fit. So now that your barrel threads are cleaned, you're going to want to also wipe down your set screws, make sure there's no residual oil on them. So now that everything's clean, we do recommend that you guys go over to HerringtonArms.com or any store and pick up blue Loctite. This is blue Loctite 243. It's going to be an important piece to installing your Herrington Arms compensator. So I'm going to use my giant jar of 243 Loctite here, and we'll add some Loctite to the top. You can put this all the way around the threads. Usually this is plenty to install the compensator. And pull your barrel forward to allow clearance for those threads. And we'll spin it on. I like to spin it on all the way until it stops and hits that shoulder. Like that. So you can see with it bottomed out, it's not going to lock in place. Sometimes you can back this off and it will click in place. Sometimes the barrel will be a little bit longer and it will actually be right out of battery. And you will not be able to get the barrel to fully seat into the slide like that. In that case, you're going to want to back the compensator off of a full turn so that there's an air gap between the compensator and the slide. Really what we're looking for here is that you can see light between the fins. And if you can't see light, just back it off one rotation. The reason there needs to be a clearance is when this barrel drops down, the compensator can pinch the top of the slide. So we just need a little bit of clearance for that and the fins to cycle properly. So this actually fit really nicely in the other orientation. So we will take it back to its tight fit here. Another thing you can do is wiggle. If there's a little bit of play in the compensator, you know that there's probably enough room for it. So now I'm gonna go ahead and throw in our recoil assembly, keep everything nice and tight. Now that compensator's not going anywhere, that Loctite's already starting to set up. And we can clean our set screws and put Loctite on them as well. Go ahead and add a little drop of Loctite to that. What I like to do is pinch the guide rod dust cover location here in the compensator. The tolerance between these two geometries are very similar, so you can get a good idea on locating this compensator properly. And we can thread this in until it stops with the long end of the Allen key. And I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up so that we're not making a mess. All right, now let's go over to the other side, wipe off the oil and add some Loctite. Thing to note here is if you are installing the No-Fin compensator, you do not need to do some of the extra steps. It is a lot easier, but I will show you that here in a minute. So again, tighten it down until it stops and clean off that excess Loctite. Okay, now we're going to pinch the bottom again and make sure that it feels even on both sides. The compensator is slightly smaller than the actual guide rod location here. And we're gonna want to tighten up one side, 1/8 of a turn, go over to the other side, and back and forth. Very similar to tightening down lug nuts on a rim. Just want to go back and forth. If you tighten one set screw all the way, it will pivot the compensator and will not be fully aligned. We recommend using the provided Allen key here. We have removed a lot of broken bits out of customers' compensators. You can use a bit, but we only recommend 12 to 14 inch-pounds. Again, please note we've removed a lot of these out of compensators, so please just use the provided Allen key. The set screws do not need to be that tight. Now what you're going to want to do is function test the slide. I like to just push down on this and make sure that the barrel springs back up in place and look down in between the fins and the slide. Make sure that there's an air gap between the compensator and the slide. It is very small, but there is an air gap. So now we can put it on the frame and function check the handgun. Function's good. One thing you can do is you can look and see if there's any marking on your slide where the compensator is hitting the Cerakote or nitride finish. And in our case, it is not. So this is a successful install. Now let's go ahead and show you guys how to install your Dagger No-Fin. It is going to be a little bit simpler. First things first, make sure that the barrel threads are clean with a degreaser, and also make sure that the set screws are clean. If your barrel does come with a thread protector that has an O-ring, you're going to want to remove that. It can cause the compensator to not fully seat on the barrel. One thing that we recommend with all of our compensators is that you use blue 243 Loctite. This Loctite is going to allow you to keep your compensator on for a long time without anything loosening up. Now that you have removed your O-ring from the barrel, we can add a little bit of Loctite on the barrel threads and thread on the compensator. This is where the No-Fin differs from the finned compensator, because we can simply thread this on until it hits the slide. So since there are no fins, you do not need to push the barrel forward. We actually recommend you leaving it locked in place and threading it on until it hits the slide. So right there, it hit the slide. We can actually back this off 1/8 of a turn. And as long as we can see light between the compensator and the slide, this will work just fine. In this case, I can see light between the comp and slide. You can see how close of a fit that is, but it will work. So now we can go ahead and install the guide rod to keep the barrel in place. What I like to do is I like to pinch the compensator and the guide rod location here, make sure that it's nice and aligned. This Loctite's already starting to set up. And now we can install the set screws. Again, just add a little bit of Loctite on there and pinch the bottom of the compensator and the guide rod, and then we can thread in the set screw. Again, you're gonna wanna pinch here because this compensator might wanna rotate as soon as the set screw touches it. And you're gonna wanna use the long end of the Allen key so that you do not over tighten it. We will tighten it down properly here in a minute once we get the other set screw in. So now I like to clean up the excess Loctite so we're not making a mess, and then jump over to the other set screw. A little bit of Loctite, and once that one's fully seated, we can clean up the mess. Now that the mess is cleaned up, we can pinch the compensator and guide rod location here to keep it aligned and tighten this down. You're gonna wanna go back and forth on these set screws so that you do not over tighten one side and cause that compensator to pivot. And both sides are tight. I can still see an air gap between the compensator and the slide, and I can do a little function test here. You essentially want to make sure that this barrel can move freely and it's not pinching the top of the slide between the compensator and slide. Now we can throw this on the frame and do a little function check on the gun. Okay. Everything seems to be working right. The barrel is going back in place as it should. And I can still see light, so this is another successful install on the Dagger No-Fin compensator. So now let's show you guys how to uninstall the HCDG and the HCDG No-Fin. First up, we are going to remove the magazine, make sure the gun is clear, and take the slide off the frame. Then we can pull the guide rod out of the slide here and pull the barrel forward. One thing you're gonna wanna keep a note here is these fins are pretty sharp and they will cut you if this is Loctited in place and really stiff. So you can wrap a rag around it to protect your hands. This is Loctited in place, so we're gonna go ahead and remove these set screws all the way. So first we can try to remove this compensator by hand. If we find that it is too hard, we can add a little bit of heat to break up that blue Loctite. So that really wasn't that bad to get it to come loose. So the main difference between the Dagger finned and the Dagger No-Fin is you have to pull the barrel forward to get this to twist off. With the Dagger No-Fin, you can simply remove the guide rod and the set screws and start twisting it off. With the fins being in the way, they could hit the slide. So that's really the only difference between the finned compensator and the No-Fin. Okay, and the compensator is removed. If you've removed this compensator a handful of times, I recommend getting some new set screws. And when you go to install this compensator, you're gonna want to clean the threads inside the compensator and the threads on the barrel to make sure they're free of oil, old Loctite, or anything that would cause this Loctite to not cure. And that's gonna allow your Loctite to cure and keep the compensator on there nice and tight. All right, so now to remove the Dagger No-Fin compensator, remove the guide rod. And we're going to remove these set screws. Again, you're gonna want to remove these set screws all the way to protect your barrel threads. And we can put a rag on it just to protect our hands. This one was pretty loose, didn't have a whole lot of Loctite. And that's it. It's very simple with the set screws. It makes it very easy to install and uninstall the compensator. And if you do have a hard time getting that Loctite to break free and you cannot get that compensator to loosen up, one thing we recommend doing is adding a little bit of heat to the barrel behind the compensator, and that will have the heat transfer from the barrel into the threads and ultimately into the Loctite. and then you'll be able to just loosen up that compensator. Just be careful, the compensator will get warm, the barrel will get warm. It does not take a lot of heat to break up that Loctite. Now jumping into some of the frequently asked questions we get about these compensators. First up, will this compensator make my gun unreliable? And the answer is no. We've done a lot of testing with the compensator, a lot of different port sizes, a lot of different geometries of the port, and we found that this is going to be the best balance between reliability and function. We actually had to remove some of the port size to get this gun to run reliably, and that has always been at the forefront of our focus at Herrington Arms, is making a reliable product that is also effective. Which model HCDG compensator should I buy? The finned or no finned? And honestly, that depends on what slide you have. If you have the standard PSA Dagger extreme carry cut slide, the finned is gonna look great on there. It's gonna fit the profile nicely, it's what we designed it for. But if you have one of the other SW series slides like this one, the fins will actually hit the slide because there's no clearance. So that's why we made the HCDG No-Fin. We literally removed the back of the fins. So now you get a comp that was designed for this, but also works on Gen 3, and it's gonna be perfectly reliable. The best way to tell what slide you have is gonna be go to our website. We actually have a picture in the product pictures that will show you which slide you have. If that doesn't help, you can also go to PSA's website. They have a very similar way to tell. You can pull up the exact product that you bought, and it will tell you if it has the extreme carry cut slide or not. Will the HCDG or HCDG No-Fin fit my holster? If you have an open front holster, the answer is yes. The compensator will go right through the end of the holster and be fine. If you have a closed front holster for your PSA Dagger, the answer is no. It's gonna have to be modified so that the compensator can sneak out the front of the holster. This is very common with any comped handgun. This is not specific to just the PSA Dagger. And for the last question, why do you guys use set screws to mount your compensator? As you guys could see, it was very easy to uninstall and install this compensator. We've heard from a lot of customers in the industry that have had a hard time installing compensators that have the shim kits. You're gonna need a bench or a lot of other tools to install that compensator. So we make it real easy on you guys. You can simply thread this on, tighten down the set screws, and put a little bit of Loctite on there, and you're good to go. It's something that we felt was very simple, but it added a lot of value for the customer. Not everybody's a gunsmith, not everybody has a bunch of tools, so this is the easiest way to do it. And on top of that, we hear all the time, people don't understand how this works. These set screws actually tighten down on the shoulder behind the barrel threads, so you're not gonna be damaging your barrel. You will see little dimples on your shoulder from these set screws biting in, but that's normal and it's not gonna affect the reliability of the handgun. If you guys are interested in seeing some shooting with this gun, we have a lot of videos on our main channel shooting this specific build. So if you guys wanna go check that out, the link will be in the description. Otherwise, if you guys like this video, we'd appreciate a like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.